Now, NDE Radio, a weekly exploration of near-death experiences and similar encounters with the other side. Now, here's your host, Lee Witting.
Welcome to NDE Radio with Lee Witting. Whether you're listening on TalkZone, by podcast, through the archives of our ad-free shows on our YouTube channel, or connected through the incredible content of our Facebook page. Our guest today, Christine Dorsey, began her spiritual journey at the age of 5 when she had a near-death experience during surgery for a ruptured appendix. She witnessed firsthand the beauty, safety, and grace of the other side in the presence of a special being. Spiritual gifts were planted in her at that time, but stayed dormant until she matured and began to cultivate them. She became certified by the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which expanded her knowledge of wellness practices and helped make clear to Christine that her life's purpose was to assist in energetic and spiritual healing. Christine is a certified Reiki master, integrated energy therapist, meditation teacher, an ordained minister, and a tarot card reader. At times, she utilizes the tarot to assist in her clients' journeys toward personal and spiritual growth. Christine utilizes her intuitive ability to see emotions that are stored in the body with direction from spirit, the healing angels, and her guides. You can find further information at heliotropeholistic.healing.com. So, Christine, welcome to NDE Radio. You had an NDE at 5 years old?
Yes.
Tell us what brought that on and what happened.
Sure. So I, at the time, was in a Catholic kindergarten, and I was in school on a Friday, and I had a terrible stomach ache. I got sick in class. I came home that night. It just got worse. And I just remember vividly sitting like on the living room couch in our house, just continually vomiting. By Saturday, they thought maybe it was a little bug. It got worse. My parents ended up taking me to St. John's Hospital, to the ER. I remember it being very crowded. And I remember seeing a doctor who, for lack of a better word, seemed to rush us out of the ER, gave me green medicine. I remember the color. Because as soon as we came home and I was on my mom's couch, I vomited the green medicine up.
Oh.
That whole night, I felt terrible, and extremely vividly on a Sunday morning, as the sun was rising, my appendix burst in the house because all I could do was scream. Oh. I remember both of my parents. My dad, when he was younger, his appendix, he had appendicitis, and he was sure it was my appendix the entire time. And my dad was a little 100% Sicilian man with a big attitude. So I feel like from the drive to the house all the way to the hospital, he was venting, his concern and also what he was feeling. I remember my mom wrapped me up in a very lovely 70-ish color themed Afghan that she knitted. I remember everything. And we ended up going to Elmhurst General, which Elmhurst Hospital is still there. That lovely Sicilian temper and entered its way into the ER, to him being put to the side, them really rushing to my side. And I remember being put on a gurney into the elevator, and I looked up at a doctor of some sort. And I just remember that his voice was very calming, and it was almost like I knew that I was in good hands. Like I just knew, I just felt better. From that point, it goes to, I'm there. I go into surgery, and then I cross over. So I don't remember what some people will refer to the wormhole in and the wormhole out. And what I've come to understand is it's different for everybody, but at the age of 5, because it would have been so terrifying to me, that entrance and exit, that it was sort of blocked from my memory, that part.
Yes.
The first thing I remember is staring at a field of every different color tulips. They were beautiful. And they were flowers I had never seen because my mom grew roses in the backyard. So quite frankly, I don't ever recall seeing a tulip prior to that experience. The color was so brilliant that it almost sang, it had such a vibration about it. Mm. And it was, as I was on top of a bit of a hill, I'll say, to the left of me was the sun. And to this day, what I call the perfect setting sun. It's that time between 4:30 and 5:30 when the sun is beginning to set, but it's still so brilliant and strong, but not too much. And that was the exact sun that I got to see. As I'm staring at these beautiful tulips, I realized that they were very tall flowers, but the reality is I was very little because I was 5.
Yes.
So they were as tall as almost I was. And in front of me was a man. But the first thing I saw was the back of him. And what I see is a man in a whitish robe with a belt, no shoes on at all. And I notice in my terms at 5, his mommy gave him a really bad haircut because the hair was uneven. I felt calm. I felt joyous. I felt safe. There was no fear. I remember I didn't feel cold. I just felt perfect. And I was happily following him, also barefoot, down this dirt path. It was like a path cut in between all of these tulips. And we just kept walking, and he didn't say anything to me yet. It was more of my observation of the beauty that I was seeing. We came around to a bit of a turn, and in front of us was this glorious tree. Now, I had a tree as a kid in front of my house, and it was a pretty good tree, but I would call this the perfect tree that you would want to climb if you were a little kid. It really looked like the tree of life where it came out. The big branches were low enough that you could climb them. It was full. It was just beautiful. And at that point, we stopped, and he turned around and he looked at me. I remember noticing the color of his hair was like a sandy brown. I noticed that his eyes were green like my eyes, and they had almost like a gold fleck to them. There was just something different. He had facial hair, like a beard and a goatee type of thing, and a kind face. And the kind face, I would also say, was sort of a kind energy that I was feeling. And he picked up this very thick book that had, my description would be the pages were completely uneven. They did not look like necessarily paper. It seemed to be bound by something other than leather. Not a normal book that my 5-year-old, up until those years that I had seen. He took this book and he sort of flipped some of the pages into my face to make a little fan. And I remember giggling, and he said, "You too will know this book one day." And I just laughed. I just smiled. I didn't really comprehend the words at that time. The next thing I remember is he took my hand and we walked over to look at kind of a little tiny brook, a little stream of water. And when you see ones where like the rocks are really well worn, they're just super round. That's what all these just round rocks, this beautiful water. And that was it. And then I was out. I spent 12 days in ICU, 17 days total in the hospital. So what had happened to instigate this is that when my appendix burst at home, I went septic. So they were doing surgery on a kid who was already not doing so well. And I can tell you, I had asked my mom over the years all the time, do you remember anything? Did they say anything? Did they tell you what happened? And she would say they didn't, there was nothing. But back then, there wasn't that transparency that you have now. It was 1976. So, or 77. I was 5.5. So, she didn't have any record of it, so to speak, that was on paper, but I knew what had happened. When I came out of the hospital, it was now my graduation from kindergarten. And I remember distinctly sitting with my cap and gown, and I was sad, I was depressed, and I knew I didn't want to be here. I knew enough that this was not what that was. And I remember the photographer looking at me, and she kept trying to get me to smile. And she said, why wouldn't you want to smile? What does a little 5-year-old not want to smile about? And I can certainly send you that picture because I still have it. And it's this much of a smile. That's about as much as I can muster up. But the experience was so profound that coming back here, it just felt, heavy to be here, quite frankly.
Now, the person you've described sounds very much like Jesus. Did you have that idea in mind when you met him?
No, actually, I felt very much that it wasn't him. I knew he was of importance, and it was not him. It was actually John the Baptist, who was his cousin.
Yes. And
it was him that led me there. Ended up getting, years later, some more confirmation on that through some other avenues, and having my own metaphysical and spiritual experiences when I was ready to open back up and get those gifts that were ministered to me, that book that I was going to know. And I do know now.
When you were there, you felt comfortable. Did you feel a sort of aura of love that people talk about sometimes that permeates the atmosphere of the place?
Oh, absolutely. I didn't want to leave. There was not 1 ounce of my being that wanted to come back. I wasn't thinking, I'm afraid, I want to leave. I wasn't thinking that at all. And in fact, those beautiful tulips, I ended up looking up the spiritual meaning, and it means perfect love. Oh my goodness. Well, of course, that's where I was, because it's absolutely perfect love when you cross over and you unite with spirit. That's what it is. And actually, it's so profound for me, the symbolism of the tulip now to this day, that I will share this with you because we're here. But I ended up getting a beautiful tattoo.
Oh, very nice.
Of a tulip just recently over the summer, just because it's part of me, and yes, that perfect love, I felt that absolutely the entire time.
And the tree, would you say it was like an apple tree or any particular variety you can think of?
I really think it was my tree of life he was showing me. So it looked very much like, I suppose, I'm not very good with trees, but I'll say like a big oak tree, strong. The only thing is, I know that the branches did come low. So not too low, but low enough for me, at 5, to feel like, ooh, I could climb this tree if I wanted to, And I felt that he was showing me really that this was me. This was symbolism for what my life was about to be, full, strong, sturdy, and have a purpose.
Was this the only tree that you saw?
It was the only tree that I significantly remember. I feel like in the background distance, the hills, there were some background trees that I saw, but I didn't focus on them. I was really focusing on these tulips because I couldn't believe how beautiful and bright they were, and really, it's like they were singing to me in a sense.
Perhaps they were.
Yeah, they might have been, probably.
And now you got information along the way afterwards about why this is John the Baptist. Tell us about what more you know about the person you were with.
So this is really over the years when I became to grow into my gifts, my intuition, my healing abilities. I also found myself with like-minded people, like you find your tribe, your spiritual tribe, and I was finding them. I ended up seeing a very well-known medium out of Connecticut, and when I sat with her, I wanted to just hear what maybe more she might be able to add. So I started with just a little bit of information, just a nugget, and she finished by telling me exactly the experience I had because she saw it as I had seen it. But then she said, well, it was John. It was John the Baptist. And I said, and it was almost like it just rang in my heart. Yes, that's who it was. I knew he was significant to Jesus. I couldn't place how all this time. So she really filled in that spot. Now, at the time that I saw her, it was very close to Christmas. And I always go into the city with my kids into New York City. We go to St. Patrick's Cathedral. It's a thing we do. And if anybody's familiar, whenever you try to get into St. Pat's Cathedral before Christmas, good luck. It's shoulder to shoulder. It's crowded. It's everything.
Yes.
Well, we went in 2 weeks before Christmas. We stepped in, was hardly crowded. That in and of itself, I said, whoa, this is amazing. We got to sit in the pew and just sort of feel the peace. And I said, you know what? Why don't we go through the Stations of the Cross? I've never done that here. Who knows whenever I'll do this? So I end up with my kids going through each Station of the Cross. And it was beautiful, absolutely stunning. Each one was more magnificent than the other. So we go around, we go behind the altar, and there's the shrine to Mary. Wow, I've never seen that. That was stunning. And we're just standing kind of looking in the glass doorway. And it's very quiet. And I look over to the right, and there's one more statue, not necessarily a station, just a statue. No one is there. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. No one's there. I said, I think I need to go over there. I walked over, and it was a statue of St. Elizabeth, who is John's mother.
Yes.
And Elizabeth was Mary's cousin. And carved into, the statue was the story of how Archangel Gabriel came to Elizabeth and told her that she would be pregnant because Elizabeth was pregnant later in life. That was how the story went. And that she would have a child who would baptize Christ. And every fiber in my body was just vibrating as confirmation. And I knew it was like Elizabeth was telling me, yes, that is who it was. And that is for sure who it was. I have no doubts.
Yes, Elizabeth and Mary visited. It's told in the Bible. And the baby leaped in the womb when the two of them met. And John was 6 months older, I guess, thereabouts.
Yep. And
proceeded and talked about Jesus coming, that he was just there to introduce people. But this is very interesting because I've heard lots of people who said, I saw Jesus, or I met Jesus, or I was with the light, but I never have I heard a story of meeting John the Baptist, who was a very interesting, and Jesus loved him dearly. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the series called The Chosen.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you must see it. Find it. It's in a number of places. It's in its third season now. I think there are going to be 4 or 5 seasons or more, and it's Jesus' life told in the simplest, purest, loveliest, ordinary life kinds of terms. Nothing fancy, and what they had to put up with the Romans and everything. So as I'm recommending it to you, I'm recommending it to all our listeners as well.
I love that.
The chosen. The chosen are the disciples. They're the. It's not that Jesus is the chosen, but that they are. Now you talk about gifts that you received. Tell us how you discovered that you had those, and do you attribute them to your near-death experience?
Okay. So number one, I'll work backwards. Yes. The answer is I absolutely do. I feel that they are 100% attributed to that experience. So the gifts that I've grown into, because I do believe in my mind, like divine planted these seeds, and it's almost like, over time, over the course of my life and life experiences, they've sort of been watered and cultivated until they were appropriately allowed to bloom. So some things have come after the other. I'm intuitive. I'm a healer and a medium at times. So I've always been very sensitive to feeling energies. And if I'm in a home, for instance, where there may be an energy that's lingering or whatnot, I can feel that right away. I can look at a house and I can feel it right away. I've had communication. I am a healer by trade. So I am trained as a master at Usui Reiki, integrated energy therapy. I'm a certified meditation teacher, certified in tarot, and I'm an ordained minister. We'll start there. But that led over time. So I've had sessions where I'm doing an energetic healing session with clients. And what will happen is I really bring in the divine and we work together, and I'm just a conduit. And what will happen is I will see images of where there's emotional trauma on the client. I will see the stories and feel it, and we will work out that energy together. If there's a loved one who would like to come through, they have permission. I'm very strict with my rules on who may enter into the session. I do a lot of grounding and blessing for my clients and myself. And I will get a message or some messages for the client, depending on who the client is. Because a lot of times, not only is the energetic healing of benefit, but when you get a message from someone who's crossed over and you love, that can be so healing. That can just be the thing that makes you feel relief, makes you just, feel better with the situation, know that they're still with you, that they're watching you, they're aware of what's going on with your family, or if you're thinking of that move, they're telling you to move, go ahead, transfer companies. And this is definitely a gift that I received from my experience. I will say that I'm edging into more of the mediumship as I'm growing older, as my, the maturation of my gifts. I love healing, and it's just a natural ability that I have. My intuition is always strong and always getting stronger. I'm a big believer in meditation and prayer. And I also feel, I guess in a sense, it makes me think about John the Baptist, because I kind of feel like we might be a little similar in the sense that I'm all about a little bit of being in the background sometimes and helping to cultivate the client on whatever level they can get to. Doesn't need to be grand. Healing can just be very small. And I almost feel like with John, his whole life purpose was to serve his cousin. He wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about Christ. So I just love him and I love his energy. And I just feel like that was so infused into my experience. And I love seeing my clients do well, feel good, feel healthy, peace of mind and peace of heart, and feel that love. And when I'm working with clients, that perfect love is, to me, that is the ultimate healer. Love heals everything. And I try to bring that in.
Dr. Schellberg, who has been a guest on the show a couple of
Yes.
times now.
Yep.
And he, as a medical doctor, had the unusual ability to consult with Jesus on his various
Yep.
cases.
Yep.
Do you feel like there's something or some source that you're touching with when you are working in healing?
Yeah. So although I'm attuned to the Reiki symbols and to integrated energy therapy, which is all of the healing archangels, I pull in a lot of angelic energy. And first and foremost is Christ. And to me, he's like a friend. And I go, all right, let's do this. I call in Christ, I call in Mary, I actually call in Joseph too, and I call in John. I call in my team of angels and all of the healing angels and the angels of my client. And when I'm with a client and I'm doing this work, I can feel him and he just guides me. He's just showing me, we're going to go here. And he allows me to see the story of the client, to know the trauma that's occurred, because trauma is, of course, very personal. And my client sessions, obviously they're very personal. So he allows that to be seen for the highest healing and highest good for my clients. And he's with us the entire time. And when we're done, we thank him and the rest of the team.
Have you encountered spirits that you would say are in trouble, or perhaps, to use a Catholic term, in purgatory, asking for prayer or for help in some way from you or from family?
Well, okay. So with clients, I've noticed if there's a family member that for some reason needs to step back, they're not quite there right here with the healing. What they're showing the client is that they are there, but they understand that maybe at this time a message wouldn't be of the highest good. I have seen that. Side note, separately, personally, I have had a few experiences where I've felt some very negative. That would be an understatement. I had one terrible experience where it just felt like the lowest energy I've ever come into contact with. And what I've been told and I've learned over time is when you have these gifts, you're like, you have this ethereal flag waving like, hi, I can hear you. I can see you. And they want to, sometimes communicate. And I have rules. My rules are, we don't do that. So I had to learn the hard way about how to create a protective space in my home and in my bedroom. My poor husband, he'll just say, what's that noise? Like, are we okay? He'll be like, are we fine? I'll be like, it's fine. Don't worry. I'll work on it. A lot of times, and I have to say, I'm very, very spiritual, not very, very religious. So when I say this, it's from a spiritual standpoint. I call in Archangel Michael. I'm telling you, he sits right there next to me at bed. I say every morning I call him in to protect myself and all of my family, my home. And I call in God. And when I had that experience of that energy that was very low vibrating, all of a sudden, without thought, it was almost like a subconscious action. I said the Lord's Prayer, Our Father, over and over again, like 3 times, and it was gone. And I would advise anybody, this is just my advice, if you ever find yourself in an uncomfortable energy or space, the Lord's Prayer, 100%. For me, that's my go-to.
I know it's said so often that it's almost trite, and yet the power of that prayer is so magnificent. And if you do it line by line and you understand what the prayer, how it's constructed, what it's asking for, what it's offering, I mean, it's a beautiful prayer. It really is. And the power and the glory and all that stuff that was added later on, the Catholics, I don't know if do they still delete that part, because that's not biblical.
Well, let's put it this way. I don't add it. So that's all I know.
And deliver us from evil in many churches, in Eastern churches, is deliver us from the evil one, which personifies and focuses and is scary at the same time.
Yeah.
Tell us a little about your visceral reaction to that low point that you were describing.
I was asleep, out cold. And in a microsecond, I felt someone come up into the bedroom, up, right, almost like close enough. Not right up, not right there here, but close enough. And I felt it. And I'm going to say every instinct in my body, whatever guides and angels I have, said, get up. Yeah, wake up. Like, this is coming. This, and it was this moment where it arrived and I woke up and I right away started the prayer. I right away and I could visualize Archangel Michael, and then right away it was gone. And I looked around the room. I couldn't see anything, but my, oh my, it stuck with me that night. I have a very good mentor that I work with, and I called her the next day and I said, listen, I have to tell you something that happened. And she said, all right. She said, listen, Christine, you got to protect yourself, not only in the morning, but at night. There needs to be a ritual that you create for protection. And it involves blessings, prayers. I do use a lot of crystals in my home. I use some essential oils in my home, and rosemary I'll keep around the house. People joke, but this house we're good. We're like Fort Knox here, because I know after that experience that I'm not interested in ever having it again. I did see once an energy walk across the outside of the house. It got picked up by the Ring camera. And it wasn't coming to my house. But also, I'll say this, my house is so protected and blessed, it was not going to be easy to come to my house. So I just watched it go, and I saw it on the Ring camera, and it went.
What did it look like?
It looked like, you know what it looked like? It looked like about a 19 or 20-year-old, very skinny teenager body in dark pants. It looked like a dark sweatshirt with a hoodie. But here's what part was interesting. I didn't see a face, and I didn't see the feet touch the ground, and it was moving rather quickly. So that was very strange, very strange. But I said, you know what? That's okay. It didn't come to me. But what's funny or interesting about it is the next morning, I go back to the Ring and it says person detected, previous event. I play it. It didn't show up on the recording.
Oh.
Even though it said person detected, it didn't record. So I could see it on my phone when it was happening, because that's what I did. I watched it because the Ring triggered in the middle of the night. And then I said to my son, I said, hey, check your Ring, the Ring camera. So what do you see? He goes, says person detected. It was about 2 a.m. I said, and what do you see when you play it? He goes, I don't see anybody on the camera. It was wild. Yeah. Very strange.
Do you have more than your son as children?
Yeah. So I have 3.
Okay. And what do they think of your experiences?
They'll joke. They'll say, Mom, what do you feel? What are you picking up on? But the truth of the matter is they're all actually very intuitive also, and they all have their own gifts. Mm. So they know if there's something a little off, we're going to pay attention to it. And they've all had little experiences of their own. My mom had passed 7 years ago, so they've all had little experiences around her. And I love that, because that's how, when our loved ones know that they can communicate with us, that's great. It's really, really beautiful. So whether it be a song they play on the radio, or the cardinal that they send, or my daughter, sometimes her light will go on or her printer goes off, or, just strange little things. It's just nice to know. So they, although they make fun of me, they do it with love.
My mother, who also loved roses, has sent the scent of roses in the middle of winter.
Oh, I love that.
And it's such a wonderful, warm, beautiful thing to happen. And your mother loved roses. Have you ever had that experience?
It's funny, because I have had that experience with her, but she did something pretty wonderful right after she passed. She passed in September. And at the time she was in assisted living. And so my daughter, my sister were cleaning out her stuff out of the closets and such. And they came upon pre-wrapped 4 Christmas gifts. She was ahead of herself. She liked to be prepared. She already had all 4 of us children. She had our Christmas gifts. So, okay, that was good. So we set them aside and we said, we're going to wait till Christmas. At the beginning of December, there was a early snowfall. And I remember driving to work and looking over on this branch and seeing this gorgeous, brilliant cardinal. Now, I know that that is very much the sign of someone who has passed, but for me, it was the first time I had ever even paid attention to a cardinal. So I thought, well, that was really nice. So fast forward, now we get to Christmas and, everybody's here and we lay out the gifts from my mom. So I open up the gift and can't make it up. It's a beautiful glass, ornate cardinal tree topper.
Very nice.
Very nice. So that lady, she's always telling me something. She's always communicating something. Yeah, I knew. I mean, come on. I looked at it and the kids knew the story about the cardinal because I thought it was such a nice story. And I opened it up and my kids looked at me like, whoa. I was like, I know, it's amazing, good for us. Yay.
The book that John showed you, have you thought about that and what it means?
Yeah, I have. I have thought about it, and what I do feel it really means is infusing spirit into not only my world, but into clients' worlds, and understanding that it really just means love. It's pure love. And you heal through love. Our everyday actions can be through love. And that will change your trajectory tremendously when you embrace that. And the more I'm aligned with that energy of trusting and letting go and understanding it's all coming from love, it's clear how much better my life has become because of that, for sure.
And when he flipped the pages and created a breeze toward you, was that love coming from that book?
I think so. I think that was just a little connection, a little communication there in a different way. And it was love, because it's not only love, it can be fun too, right?
Yes.
Right? It is. And you can be aligned with spirit and it'd be fun too. Like, we're here to learn our lessons, and I hope in a joyful manner. And sometimes that doesn't always happen. But when we're grateful, and we can be grateful for the small joyous things in our life, we can increase that vibration in our lives. And, I very much try to, again, keep it on a simple level of helping my clients get there, one step at a time towards healing.
When you were standing there posing for the photographer and not looking happy because you weren't with the situation of Catholicism, did you ever communicate that to your rest of your family, to your parents, that churches are missing the mark of what it's all about?
When I came out of it, I believe, I tried to communicate what happened, but at that time you're looking, and I get it, they were looking at a 5.5-year-old who was very medicated and hooked up to tubes. So they took it with a big grain of salt, we'll say that. But I do recall my mother after the fact. I believe she had such an issue too with the teacher at that time, and just the way they handled the situation, because I stayed through the day and came home on a city school bus, like at 5, if you have a sick child who vomits in a classroom. You'd think there was a little more compassion there. So I think they did look at that a little bit differently. A few years later, when I was in 4th grade, they ended up moving out of Queens to the Hudson Valley. So I ended up in a public school, it was lovely. It was a beautiful school. And I think it definitely changed the energy, and there was a church, so my mom could go to the church if she wanted to. And she did sometimes, and she didn't sometimes. But that also allowed freedom for me, I believe, in how my life path was going to go and how I would come upon spirituality on my own. how I would find my way when it was time. I think it wasn't so strict, it gave me that freedom. And I think everything happens for a reason. So it's not by accident. We moved up to the Hudson Valley. It allowed me that time for growth. And at that point too, my siblings were moving on and moved out. So I was like an only child in a sense, finding my own way.
The Hudson Valley is nearly as beautiful as heaven at different times of the year.
It is. It definitely is. You're right about that. Yes.
St. Francis saw the beauty in nature. He saw God in nature, and he saw, I think, the radiance that probably you might have seen from the flowers in the flowers that he was looking at. I just did a blessing of the pet therapy dogs at my hospital for St. Francis Day, which is October 4th. So he's been on my mind and in my shows. But the world is in serious trouble. I think you would agree. Do you get any inkling about where things are going, or if we can pull ourselves out of a spiritual decline?
Yes. I've come up with a few thoughts. The first thought was originally when things really started, it seemed to take a left turn. I was paying attention so much to the events that I said, wait a second, I have to detach from that. I'm not going to pay attention to these events right now. How do I want this to be? What do I want this to look like personally? All right. I have a sense of creating a new way to unite, a way to naturally bring to the surface what isn't working, which is what is happening, quite frankly. A new way to begin to lead our country, because it hasn't been done properly for a very, very, very long time. And again, when you let go and trust, and I'm believing that there's a lot of work behind the scenes that we're not always aware of. But if we can trust that what we want, our end goal, and focus on that, we're going to create that vibration and unite and be united versus divided. Because I thought, like, let's just hypothetically say, like 4 years ago, I didn't care. I'm not the biggest political person. So if you were whatever opposite of what I believed in, I didn't care. I don't care. And then it seemed to turn into sort of like, if you were something opposite of what you believed in, that was a real issue. And I thought, no, that's not loving your neighbor. Like, we need to get behind that part. Again, going back to love. And I'm not trying to be naive, like love can cure everything, but it can. But if we can focus on uniting and focus on what we want versus what we don't want, we are definitely going to create that. We're going to focus and create that vibration at a much higher level as a united force. And I do believe, in my opinion, that we may be headed in a better direction. So let's hope. From my mouth to God's ears.
Yes. Well, the forces of evil know that division is the way to conquer.
That's right.
I mean, that's an old rule of war, and now it's a psychological war. And that evil one at the end of the Lord's Prayer is at work on these things, dividing us, and arming militias, and all of the things that could turn into a really sad, catastrophic situation. So tell us a little about Heliotrope Holistic Healing, which is your company name. I guess I can call it a company. And what sort of services you would offer for people who are listening.
Sure. So heliotrope, if anybody knows, is actually a type of flower, and that flower follows the sun. So I actually have that definition on my website, and that's why I love that. It's such a unique, and it's a Greek name, I believe. So at Heliotrope, what we do is we provide energetic, intuitive healing with yours truly. As I said, I utilize the spiritual connection that I have. I utilize my intuitive abilities and my abilities to see the trauma that's held in the body, along with Husui Reiki and integrated energy therapy, which is the use of the archangels that are focused on healing. In addition, I provide guided meditations for beginners. I do one-to-one sessions, or I do group guided sessions. Like I said, beginners are always welcome. I love it. I love beginners because I just want them to dive in a little bit. I could just get them a little bit. I could show them how much better they'll feel. I'm also certified health coach by the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. So I'll do wellness consulting and spiritual guidance. And, it's basically sitting with a client and looking at the areas of their life where they would like to work on, where it might be out of balance, and help them to create balance that works for them. So those are the three aspects. And soon-ish to offer mediumship services, but that'll be released when I'm ready to put that on my website. But I love the healing aspect, and I love helping people.
We have a little time left, and I had used some of Rod's writings for meditation. And would you like to do a short, introductory meditation for the people who are listening?
Absolutely. I have a wonderful one. Okay, ready? All right, everybody. If you sit back, close your eyes in a comfortable position, and just take a deep belly breath in and release. And you find yourself walking along your favorite beach, the water rolling up onto your toes, the smell of salt in the air. And just notice where the sun sits on the horizon. And in your hand, you're carrying a wooden box. And in that wooden box, you have placed every emotion and past experience that is not serving you any longer. Anger, fear, guilt, envy, all placed into this box. You wait for the perfect wave to come up. And it arrives. You step into the water with this box, and you watch it get pulled further and further out to sea. Until ultimately it becomes absorbed by Mother Earth and transmuted in love. You walk up on to the shore, still staring at the ocean. And in your mind's eye, focus on the people in your life you love the most and love you back. Some may be living, some may have passed. And as you feel into that love, you take a deep breath in through the heart chakra and exhale a bubble of protection around your entire body. A white light comes from above, through your crown, down through each cell, through your feet, into the ground, grounding you from above and below. And we call upon our personal angels to be with you and assist you for your higher good today and every day. And Archangel Michael to provide protection for you and your loved ones today and every day. Take one more deep belly breath in and release. You begin to wiggle your toes and wiggle your hands. Bring awareness back to your body. And when you're ready, open your eyes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome.
There is a beach just down the way from where I'm sitting that I walk on all the time. I was right there with
I
your
love
description.
that. Yeah, I love that.
Well, Christine Dorsey, thank you so much for being on the show and for telling us about your life and your experiences, your abilities. I think if someone is looking for any of the services you have to offer, I would certainly recommend that they get in touch with you. You have a website?
I do. So it's heliotropeholistic.healing.com, and I'm sure we'll attach it somewhere. And if people need to email me, it's Christine, CHRISTINE, at heliotropeholistic.healing.com. And yeah, I would love to help anyone who's interested. They can reach out. And I thank you so much, Lee, for the time to tell my story and hopefully give people some hope and know that there is something really beautiful and better. And we can all embrace it and bring some of that beauty and love into this life too.
Yeah. And that will help save not only ourselves, but the world as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If every one of us just worked on that just a little bit, we can make such a big difference.
That's it. Yeah, I agree.
My thanks to Christine Dorsey for sharing her story with us. If you'd like to hear this show again or any of our more than 500 archived ad-free NDE interviews, go to TalkZone's NDE Radio site and hit the Past Shows button, or go to our YouTube channel, NDE Radio with Lee Witting, where you can subscribe to and comment on the complete NDE Radio library. And be sure to check out our NDE Radio Facebook page. Just search NDE Radio with Lee Witting on your Facebook app. And listen next Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern at TalkZone, for more NDE Radio. I'm your host, Lee Witting, saying thanks for listening.